The Haunted House. The town was nestled deep in the forest, surrounded by tall trees and a thick layer of mist that never seemed to lift. The streets were narrow and empty, the houses were old and decrepit, and the people who lived there were just as eerie as the town itself. They kept to themselves, avoiding eye contact and speaking in hushed tones. The family, the Millers, had recently moved to the town, looking for a fresh start. They had heard stories about the place, but had dismissed them as mere folklore. The father was a writer, the mother was a homemaker, and their 3 children were bright and full of life. But Lisa, the youngest, was different. She had always been able to sense the presence of the dead, and she was never afraid of them. In fact, she felt comforted by their presence. As they settled into their new home, Lisa began to sense that the town was not as peaceful as it seemed. The souls of the dead were restless, and they were calling out to her. At first, the rest of the family didn't take Lisa's claim seriously, but as strange things began to happen in the house, they couldn't ignore her anymore. Doors would creak open and close on their own. Footsteps could be heard in the hallways when no one was there, and Lisa would often be found talking to someone who wasn't there. And the oldest was skeptical, but still worried for her sister. Scott, on the other hand, was terrified and refused to sleep in his own room. The parents tried to reassure the children, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong in the house. One night, Lisa had a vivid dream of a young girl who had died in the forest many years ago. She told the family about the girl, who claimed that she and others like her were trapped in the town, unable to move on to the afterlife. Determined to help the spirits find peace, the family decided to investigate. They learned about the history of the town and the many mysterious disappearances that had occurred over the years. With Lisa's help, they began to piece together the puzzle and uncover the dark secrets that the town was hiding. But as they delved deeper, they realized that the spirits were not the only ones who didn't want them to uncover the truth. Some townspeople were fiercely protective of their secrets, and they were willing to do anything to keep the family from uncovering the truth. As the Millers continued their investigation, they started to experience increasingly creepy and frightening events. They noticed that their house was being watched, and they could hear whispers in the middle of the night. Lisa would often wake up screaming, claiming that the spirits were trying to communicate with her. One night, while the family was sitting in the living room, the lights suddenly flickered and went out. The sound of footsteps could be heard moving closer and closer, but when they turned on the lights, no one was there. The children's bedrooms became a source of terror, with objects moving on their own and strange noises coming from the closets. Anne was woken up one night to find their room completely rearranged, as if someone had been rummaging through her things. One of the most terrifying experiences the family had was when they decided to visit the local cemetery to gather more information. As they were walking amongst the graves, they suddenly felt as if they were being watched. Suddenly the ground started to shake, and they heard the sound of ghostly laughter. Despite the many frightening incidents, the Millers were determined to uncover the truth and help the spirits find peace. They continued to work together and eventually discovered that the town was built on a sacred Native American burial ground. The spirits were trapped and couldn't find peace because the townspeople were desecrating the graves. As the creepy noises continued, the Millers gathered in the living room, trying to figure out what to do next. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and and the room became icy cold. The lights flickered, and shadows appeared to move on their own. The family could hear ghostly whispers, and they knew that they were no longer welcome in the house. The ghosts had grown tired of being harassed by the Millers, equating them with the other residents, and they had decided to take matters into their own hands. They began to terrorize the family, making their presence known in every corner of the house. Doors slammed shut, windows shattered, and objects were thrown across the room. The family tried to escape, but the ghosts were too powerful. They were chased through the house, and the family barely managed to make it to the front door. Just as they thought they were safe, Lisa was grabbed by the ghosts and taken back inside. The rest of the family was powerless to help, and they had to watch in terror as Lisa was dragged back into the house. They could hear her screams echoing through the hallways, and they knew that she was in great danger. They frantically searched for a way to save her, but they were too afraid to enter the house again. The Millers were desperate to save Lisa, and knew that they couldn't leave her alone in the haunted house. In their desperation, they called out for help from their neighbors. To their surprise, Eleanor, who lived just 4 houses away, offered to help. Eleanor was an ancient, strange-looking woman with a mysterious aura. She was not like the other neighbors who were just ordinary people. Eleanor seemed to know exactly what was going on and wanted to help the Millers. The family was hesitant at first, but they had no other choice. They followed Eleanor back to her home, where she explained that she was a practitioner of the occult and had experience in dealing with haunted houses. She told them that she would help them save Lisa, but they had to trust her completely. Eleanor led the family to her basement, where she had a collection of arcane artifacts and ancient books. She lit a candle and began to chant an incantation. The family watched in awe as a portal opened, and they could see Lisa standing in the middle of the haunted house. Eleanor instructed the family to hold hands and close their eyes. The Millers stood in awe as they watched the portal open, but their excitement was short-lived. One of the portal came countless ghosts, each with a gruesome appearance and an ominous voice. The ghosts flew around Eleanor and the family, who were gathered in a tight circle. Eleanor screamed in a loud voice, "Don't open your eyes, and keep your eyes closed, because if you do, you and Lisa are lost." The family was terrified and clung to each other, trying not to open their eyes or listen to the haunting voices. Eleanor continued to chant, her voice becoming louder and more powerful with each word. The ghosts became agitated and started to swirl around the group faster and faster. Suddenly, there was a bright light, and with that, the ghosts disappeared. The family opened their eyes to find themselves back in Eleanor's basement. Lisa was there, safe and sound. The family was overjoyed and hugged each other tightly. Eleanor warned the family that the ghosts were not gone for good and that they would have to be careful in the future. She gave them some protection charm to keep with them and offered to teach them some spells to keep the ghosts away. The Millers were determined to leave the haunted town and never look back. They gathered their belongings, said goodbye to the old woman, and headed for the car. As they were about to leave, they realized that they had a responsibility to make sure no other family would suffer the same fate as theirs. So they stopped by the town hall and spoke with the mayor. They told him the story of the haunted house and the danger it posed to other families. The mayor listened intently and promised to take the necessary steps to make sure the house was never inhabited again. For sure, the Millers didn't believe him, as he knew about the Native American burial ground and hadn't done anything so far. They informed the regional press about it. They wanted to make sure that everyone in the region knew that the history of the house and the dangers that it poses. They did not want any other family to fall victim to the ghostly presence that still haunted the house. Finally, after everything was done, the Millers packed their car and headed out of town, leaving the haunted house and all its memories behind. They never looked back, but always remembered the lessons they learned about the power of the supernatural and the importance of being careful when exploring the unknown. The end.